Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good morning and happy Friday, everybody. I'm Lisa LaFontaine. I'm the CEO and president of St. Hubert's, and I'm so glad that you could join us this morning. We're really excited to talk about some of our accomplishments in 2021, which was yet another really challenging year for us and asked a lot of us. But I'm so proud of our team that rose up and met every challenge with dedication and creativity and just a sense of can do to help the many animals that we cared for. And at the end, I want to make sure you know that we're going to look ahead. So part of this will be looking back at 2021, and then part of it will be looking not just at 2022, but some really, really powerful new programs and new initiatives that we'll be launching to take advantage of some of the things that we learned during COVID and to help more animals and more people in the years ahead. And we'll be having questions and answers at the end. So please, as we're going through the presentation, if there's anything you have questions about and want to ask me, put that into the chat. We'll save time at the end for Q&A. And if you do put your questions in the chat, we're going to find a way to answer any questions that we might not have time for. So with that, I'd like to get started and talk about 2021 a little bit, which was, I think as we went into 2021, we were hoping that we would be returning to a more normal way of operating and delivering services. And for part of the year, that was true. We were thrilled when we could open our doors wide and start having our community programs and bringing people together again. But we also had to evolve as the pandemic evolved in order to keep our employees and the animals and our volunteers and all of our customers safe. So the year didn't unfold exactly as planned, but even with that, we were able to do a lot of really good work. And so I just want to go through some of that. Here at St. Hubert's, we saved 7,000 precious animals last year. And that was through a combination of adopting animals into new homes, reuniting lost pets with their people, and the amazing transport program that we have, the Way Station, that moved animals from primarily southern shelters where they might face euthanasia because of a lack of resources up here to northern New Jersey, where they could either stay at St. Hubert's and find loving homes through our adoption program, or go back out again to some of our transport partners up in the Northeast. So 7,000 precious lives saved. We have a wonderful kitten NICU that I really encourage you to pay attention to this, because there's some exciting growth and changes in store for the NICU. This is where we take the most vulnerable, tiny, sick, often on the verge of death kittens and nurse them back to health. And the majority, almost the vast majority of the kittens that came into the NICU last year were saved. That's 624 kittens. And we're looking forward to growing this program because there are a lot of kittens that need us. We are field services officers who support 18 contracts here in northern New Jersey, responded to over 1,500 calls for help. And that can be picking up lost animals, rescuing animals who are in distress. And so they are there at a moment's notice to go to the scene and help people solve challenges and help animals who've gotten themselves into difficult situations. We have an amazing behavior team here at St. Hubert's, and they do a combination of things. They help care for the shelter animals by working on some of the behaviors that might have caused them to be surrendered in the first place and moving them along so that they become more adoptable when they're with us. They also run an amazing doggy daycare program. I can look out of my office and see the daycare happening right now. And it's a great solution for working pet parents who need a safe place for their pet in the hands of really skilled professionals. And our behavior program also runs classes for the public. But I do want to highlight that they did behavior enrichment treatments for 2,564 shelter animals last year. We have one veterinarian, Dr. Perrin, who she has a lot of work because there's just one of her. She's supported by a great medical team here. And we spayed or neutered over 2,000 animals this year. And all taken together, we saved the lives of 94.5% of the animals that came to us. That's an amazing accomplishment. And we're so proud of the team that came together to make all of this happen. Now, in addition to helping animals, we really try to lift up our community. And our community has been deeply affected by the pandemic. There have been job loss, unemployment that has prolonged, people uncertain about whether they're going to lose their housing, people that are struggling economically who didn't think they would need us ever, but need us now. And we really, really stepped up to serve the people of our community and therefore the animals. We gave out 260,000 pet meals to families living with low income, who are often having to make choices about whether or how to feed their pets. And so we took that worry off the table for them. We have 94 way station partners. So it's a whole alliance that spans from Texas and Florida and Puerto Rico, all the way through Morristown and up to as far as Toronto, Buffalo, Maine. And what we do is we move animals who are in communities where there's still rampant pet overpopulation and where those animals don't have a lot of good options, up to shelters in the north where they can find loving homes. And more than that, we develop relationships with all of these way station partners in the hopes that we can help them gradually get out of the situation where they're facing overpopulation through mentorship, through a monetary give back that's really like a grant program. And so there are 94 members of the Way Station Alliance. We likewise have a lot of human services partners, including pet food bank partners, where we work with a human service organization that's giving food out to people, and we are there giving food out to animals. So it's a family pet pantry, and people have a one-stop where they can come to feed themselves and feed their animals, and it builds a great relationship with the human service organizations. We gave out 170,000 pounds of donated pet food to other shelters, to community groups, and to individuals. And then finally, as I mentioned before, 3,237 animals moved from crisis to care through our life-saving way station program. And I want to just get deeply into a few highlights and a few stories from the year, because while we kept doing all the things that we always do, we had to step up in some unexpected ways. And I just want to talk a little bit about that. You might remember the storms that moved through here in September, and those storms started in the Gulf. And and this is a combination of the HRA team based in DC and the St. Hubert's team. Collectively, we have a very large field services team. And many of our field services officers have been trained in disaster response and water rescue. And so we often get called by our sister organizations, particularly in the Gulf, when there are life-threatening storms. And so when Hurricane Ida slammed into the Gulf Coast, we deployed one of our expert teams to do rescue and response with the Louisiana SPCA and other shelters in Louisiana. And so they were boots on the ground, rescuing animals who were trapped, who were in structures that had fallen down, who were in water, and they did a lot of direct rescue. At the same time, this expert team was doing disaster response, our way station team kicked into action. You can see some of them right here in this picture. And they coordinated airlifts of animals from Louisiana shelters to St. Hubert's, where we could help find loving homes for those animals while the communities rebuilt down in the Gulf. And so what you see now is the members of our way station team, together with Greater Good, which makes possible some of these air flights. And this is actually a scene from September where we're rescuing some of the animals who came from the Gulf. Now, just as we were doing the rescue in the Gulf, the remnants of the storm hit New Jersey, and we had a lot of flooding here. We had a lot of rain and a lot of real life-threatening conditions. And so our rescue team redeployed back to our home communities where we did the exact same thing we did as in the Gulf, which is rescue animals who had gotten trapped in apartments or who were threatened by flooding. And we were there to help our neighbors. Now, one of the biggest stories of the year is that we rescued 130 cats who were in really dire condition. They, when we got the call and showed up on the scene, we found that the cats were malnourished and they had all kinds of, they had upper respiratory, serious eye issues, tapeworms, all kinds of gastrointestinal parasites. And they were also very shy and very scared, and they were in really bad shape. And we put out a plea to the community, and many of our donors, I suspect many of you who are on the call, gave us money to help us care for these cats. Our behavior team swept into action because many of them were completely unsocialized and didn't trust people. So we had a very slow process of getting them to trust us and get to the point where we could find them loving homes. And together with you, we had sister organizations like the ASPCA who stepped in to provide funding so that we could give medical care to these animals. And so these cats were at St. Hubert's, they were nursed back to health, and then they went into our adoption program and they got a second chance at a much better life. We also did a lot of advocacy in the form of working with our city governments and our legislators to try to put better protections in place for animals. And our field officers do amazing work, but they need good laws to support them. And you know, the more that we do this work, the more we discover there are loopholes where animals can fall between the cracks. So one of the pieces of legislation that we supported was the Compassion for Community Cats Act. And this is legislation that legislates and motivates trap, neuter, return, which is a life-saving program that targets sterilization of outdoor cats and the provision of vaccines that will keep them healthy. And this significantly decreases cat deaths because feral cats don't do well in shelter environments. They have found an outdoor place where they live and where they're getting what they need. And so what we need to do is provide the medical care and the vaccines to ensure that they don't get life-threatening diseases. And so we're proud of our work on that act this year. We also opposed legislation that would have created financial barriers for pit bull dogs and several other breeds that are targets of breed-specific legislation. And we're against breed-specific legislation because all that it's based on is what the dog looks like. And many of you probably have done DNA tests on your dog, and you've been surprised when you got the results. And so what a dog actually is from a breed standpoint is often different from what they look like. I mean, personally, I had a litter of 9 foster puppies this year. Every one of them looked different. And you would have said one was a boxer and one was a pointer and one was a pit bull and one was a lab. And so I think that breed labels, when you don't know what the breed is, are really useless and lead to really bad mischief for animals because they're being judged on what they look like, not who they are and how they behave. So we strongly are against breed-specific legislation, and we're really proud to stand up for all dogs. We also advocated for the elimination of cruel gestation cages and veal crates that would confine mother pigs and calves in exceptionally cruel cages where they can't even turn around or stretch their limbs. And so together, this is all taken together. This is important work because it stands up for animals. It allows them to be treated fairly and humanely and kindly and to get the chance that they need and deserve of a good life. And then finally, because the pandemic had such an impact on community members, we knew that we needed to do more to keep pets with their people. And so we stepped up our community programs during the pandemic. We administered 1,300 vaccines to animals who otherwise wouldn't have gotten vet care. And we gave tens of thousands, actually hundreds of thousands of community members food so that they could take that worry off the table at a time when they're worried about a lot of things. We also, as I mentioned, moved over 3,200 animals through the way station. But I think just as important, we gave nearly $120,000 through our Give Back program to the source shelters where the animals came from. And the way that works is that when the animals move from the southern shelters through the transport program and are adopted out, we take a portion of that adoption fee and we give it back to the source community as a way to help them start to bridge the gaps in care and put preventative programs in place so they can gradually get out of the point where they're dealing with such despair and overpopulation. And so that's $120,000 that we gave to those organizations so that they could do preventative work to make things better for them in 2022. So that's just a small snapshot of some of the highlights. I can tell you that every single day brings a story. So we have to curate our stories for conversations like this because every hour of every day we're rescuing, we're life-saving, we're serving, and impacting individual people and animals. And so one of the things I want to pivot now to talk about the future, because we revised our strategic plan in 2021. Part of that is just a normal exercise that any organization does to look at its future, the needs of its stakeholders, and how it's going to use its resources. But it took on even more urgency this year because things are so different now. Things are not going to go back to the way they were. And we need to transition. We need to pivot and be able to address what we think is going to be coming down the pike for animals in the next few years. And so our first touch point was to look at our last strategic plan. But we also wanted to look at the lessons of the pandemic and what have we learned during this time. And so for one thing, we had a pretty profound experience at the beginning of the pandemic, March of 2022, almost unbelievably, March of 2020, almost 2 years ago, when our first instinct, as we saw the pandemic coming to our communities, was to get animals out of our shelters in case there were hundreds of animals who came in from people who were impacted by COVID. And so we put out a plea for adopters in foster homes, and we were overwhelmed by the response. And that movement of animals is something that has continued to this day. And it's gotten to the point where we now have, particularly in our DC facilities, more of the animals are in foster care than they are in our shelters. And that's a good thing because it means that community members are intimately a part of our mission. It means that the animals are in a home environment. They're not having to be making a transition into an institutional setting, which is confusing for them. And they're adopted out from a home and they're exhibiting behaviors that are more normal to them because they're in a home environment. So the adopters can really see them for who they are when they're adopted from foster care. In order to do all of that work and to serve people, we had to transition to a lot of teleservices. We provided telemedicine appointments, particularly to support all of those foster families so that they had a vet that they could call into and get answers. But even more significantly here at St. Hubert's, our behavior team, who do so many classes, from basic training to solving pretty significant behavior problems in animals, they pivoted to teletraining. And so the dog training classes were held virtually. I attended one of the St. Hubert's classes for one of my foster puppies. And it's amazing how much you get out of a virtual training class for your dog, and how a community can get created of pet owners who have pets and are in these classes together. We also developed a lot of training classes that were webinars that could just be disseminated to the public. And when you think about it, the time that it takes to produce a behavior webinar is a one-time investment, but then you can get it out there to the world, to people not just in New Jersey, but around the country. So we're really challenging the team to think about how can they use all that they know about animal behavior to put together these webinars that we can then get out, especially to parts of the country where there aren't readily available training sessions, and also to help some of our way station partners. So we're really excited about what the future holds for teleclasses, because I think these are going to be a really important resource that we can provide. Now, altogether, 2,500 people volunteered to foster. And so one of the themes at St. Hubert's in the next year is going to be building our foster team and making it a team that can really support each other. And so one of the things we're just barely starting to do, which I think is going to hold great promise, is use experienced foster caregivers to support the new foster caregivers coming into the system, so that it both takes a burden off our relatively small foster staff, but again, it also creates community by having people develop relationships with each other. The foster case managers, who are the more experienced fosters, get such a sense of satisfaction and enrichment from helping others. And so I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I've talked about some of these other things. There were more people who never imagined that they would need our services, who found themselves on the brink of having to give their pets up. And so we stepped in with vaccines and food and support and answers to their questions. And this is going to be an area where we're going to have to step up in the years ahead, because there's no sign that this is going to get better immediately. So those lessons of COVID were a really important driver in where we go as an organization in the years ahead. So we know as we look ahead that some things will never be the same, that we want to make sure everybody who has their pet or wants a pet can keep them. The last thing we want to see is families broken up just because there's a resource that's an easily deliverable resource that's available. We also want to really keep an eye on what are the emerging challenges for animals and the people who love them in our communities, so we can step in. And then finally, animal welfare as a profession, as a mission, as a body of work has evolved a lot in the last 2 decades. I've been doing this, I've been working in shelters since 1996. And we have evolved a lot. However, we also have some of the same problems we had back in 1996, things like kitten season and overpopulated summers and vexing problems that have been with us forever. But we've learned a lot, and we learned a lot during COVID, and it's really incumbent on us to use those lessons to make things better. So I want to just share some of the guiding principles that we want to promote as an organization, that we hope that you promote with us, and that just to have these guiding principles that are articulated, that are put down on paper, that people can rally around. I think it will clarify how we develop programs, how we make decisions, and how we set our priorities. So the first of our guiding principles is a belief that pet companionship should be a right and not a privilege. And one of the things I'm really deeply concerned about is that it's getting more expensive, not less so, to have a pet. Vet appointments are harder to get, and they're harder to pay for. Every aspect of caring for an animal is subject to cost of living increases. Food costs more, everything costs more. And back when I started in sheltering, more people gave up animals because they didn't want them anymore. The vast majority of people who come through our doors and have to surrender a pet don't want to have to do it. Something has happened to them. Something unfortunate has happened, where they're strapped and they're stressed and they don't have anywhere to turn. Now, of course, we're always going to be there for the people that don't have anywhere to turn, but wouldn't it be nice if before they got to that desperate point, we could step in and help? And I just feel very personally committed to the idea that we don't ever want to get to a point in our society where only people who are wealthy can have pets. Everybody should have an animal family member, and we, as an animal welfare organization, should make sure that we are growing programs to keep pets in the homes where they're already loved. And that leads to my next point of being really creative and doing really out of the box programming to keep pets with the people that love them. I've seen animals in very wealthy households. I've seen animals in struggling households. The animals love their people. They don't know what their income is. They are bonded with the kids in their families. Animals don't need a lot of space to be happy. And so, an animal, we in DC, there are a lot of homeless people living with pets, and those pets are deeply, deeply connected to their people. We step in there with food and medical care as well. But if you look at pets in homes, the home environment is home, and they're not making judgments about what their home is like. They only know love. And so keeping them in their homes with their people is a priority. We see the distress when an animal comes in from a household that had to give them up for a financial reason. We see how brokenhearted that pet is, and we see how brokenhearted the people are, and we want to minimize those circumstances. We also need to reunite more lost pets with their people before they even come into our shelters. And we have a great field services program overall as an organization. And one of the things we're looking at is how can we promote more microchipping so that our officers, when they pick up a lost animal, can scan their microchip in the van and just return them to their home before they ever have to come to us. The other thing we're looking at is how can we make it easier for people who find a lost animal to keep them, and then we can do the work to help them paper the community, create flyers to go door to door. Because if you think about it, St. Hubert's is really geographically far away from our farthest animal control contract. And so if an animal goes missing and an officer picks them up 10 miles away, people might not know to call here, despite all of the effort we do to get the word out. So it's really better for the animal if they stay closer to where they got lost, if they stay closer to their home. And they have a much better chance of reuniting with their families if we can make that happen. So that's going to be a focus of ours. We've had such great experiences partnering with human food pantries, human social services groups, human homeless groups, that we want to deepen those relationships. Because when you think about it, what is threatening people and animals is often a lack of access to services, poverty, other forms of iniquity. And so if we can link arms with human social services organizations to provide a one-stop resource for families, then we're going to have a more holistic approach. We're going to be able to provide wraparound services and be able to keep more families together. And then finally, we're challenging ourselves to see how big our foster program can grow, because fostering is wonderful. I've been fostering since, actually before I was working in sheltering, I've been fostering since 1995. And it's one of my favorite things. I still do it. It's an incredibly meaningful experience to take a broken or homeless or scared animal into your home and nurse them through and see them come into themselves, and then go into new homes. And I've stopped counting how many animals I've fostered. It's well over 200 now, but I have literally hundreds of new friends because I made friends with the people who adopted my foster animals. And so it's a real community building effort to do that. And I think that animals in foster care have an easier transition because they're going from one home to another and then to another home. And regardless of the fact that St. Hubert's is one of the most beautiful, humane facilities that has an outstanding, caring staff, wouldn't it be great if we had more foster homes so those staff could help even more animals? So that's something we're planning for and will be delivering in the years ahead. And so we have these three overarching goals that probably won't surprise you because they've been woven in all the things that I've been talking about. But one is to transform the way we work so that we're helping animals and people and serving the communities as broadly as possible. And for us at St. Hubert's, community means all the towns and municipalities and cities around us here in northern New Jersey. But our community is also our animal welfare community, our way station partners who span, as I said, from Texas and Puerto Rico all the way up to Canada and Maine. And that is an alliance, and we want to best serve that alliance. We also want to knit together better safety nets for animals through collaboration with others, and then focus on the sustainability of our organization. We're lucky that here we have come out the other side of the pandemic or are emerging from the pandemic in solid financial position. But other organizations aren't so lucky. We see it every day with our shelter partners, and some of them are in a fight for their lives to stay open. And so it's very much incumbent on us to make sure that we are here for another 80 years, that we sustain our operations so that we can continue to be an open door for years to come. And part of that is thinking more creatively about our facilities, more creatively about how we bring in revenue. St. Hubert's is ahead of the pack in some of the programs, and I'll talk about them, but the focus on financial sustainability is a priority because we know that if we're solid, we can do more, and we can do it for longer, and we can do it for more people. And so as we were looking at strategic planning, we took a look at all the services we provide, and you can see that we're a pretty robust organization. We do a lot of really great work. We have a lot of programs under our belt. But our question was, how do we organize them? How do we resource them? How do we prioritize them so that each one of them can stand successfully, and we're doing more with what we have and doing constantly more with what we have. Now, all of those programs fall into really three categories, three columns that I just want to walk you through. And I'm going to start in the middle with care. So care represents the direct work we do with animals and people. It means sheltering, it means fostering, it means reuniting lost pets with their people. It's the field services work where we rescue animals in distress. And for most organizations in the country and for most of our history, this is where we lived, doing direct care. It's intervention. It's stepping in when there's an emergency or an animal in need. And that is primarily where we have put our resources for many years. And it is where we always have to show up. I mean, we always have to keep our doors open. We always have to be there for those animals. But the challenge is that if all you do is focus on care, you can never put the building blocks around you in order to kind of climb out of just intervening. And so, as I alluded to earlier, it's very important that we build a strong legislative and regulatory network that allows animals to be safe from abuse, safe from harm, safe from discrimination, and be able to live their best lives. And so it's important to put resources into advocacy because that overall uplifts the status of animals in any community, but it also allows our staff to be on solid ground to intervene and do good work for animals. So we have to focus on care, but we also have to focus on advocacy and building that advocacy safety net stronger and stronger over the years. And then finally, we have to focus on prevention. One of the causes of the animal euthanasia that was so rampant is still rampant in many parts of the country and was rampant in our part of the country in the 1990s and 2000s is that we faced overwhelming overpopulation. And so spay-neuter is an example of a preventative program that has transformed our work. But we have to look at lots of preventative programs that view the cause of why are animals homeless, why are they abused in the first place, and what programming can we do to prevent that from occurring. Because if we have a strong legislative and advocacy arm, and we have wonderful preventative programs, then fewer animals will need care, and we can do better work for the animals who need care. And so we've developed a community animal welfare model that's going to guide us in our future work. One of those things, and I'm going to talk about these in more detail, so I'll just touch on them, but how can we have more sustainable business models so that we have solid sources of revenue in addition to philanthropy that that can support our work and our program growth, so that we can do more prevention and more advocacy and more care. A new approach to fundraising. There has often been a zero-sum view that you either care about animals or you care about people, so you give to an animal organization or you give to a people organization. But as you can see from the work that we're doing with free pet food and medical care for the public, we have blurred those lines. And so we really should be fundraising for families, not just for animals. And there are new sources of grantors and donors if you take a family view. And if you ask, surveys have been done of people that have animals, and well over 80% of the people that have animals consider them a family member. So really, we're just following the way that pet owners feel about their pets. And we're asking, where should we do the work? How should we do the work? How much of it should be in our shelters? How much of it should be in the community? Who should we partner with to do it? We need to leverage technology. Our field of animal welfare hasn't been so great at collecting data, but data guides decision-making. It guides how we use our resources. So we want to get much better at how we use technology. I talked a bit about integrating more with human social services and developing even deeper relationships with the community. And at the heart of all this is our tagline as an organization, which is animals, people, and community. And we see them all as intertwined. And a strong community creates a good safety net for animals and people. And so we're looking at a networked approach. Some of this is a work in progress, but I want to focus you on a couple of things right here. If you can see my cursor around other bricks and mortar strategies. We have a very exciting partnership that we are entering with a vet hospital here in Madison, New Jersey at our headquarters. For any of you who have come to our facility, you know that we have about 35,000 square feet of this facility that we really haven't been using for much other than storage space. And so this veterinary partnership, they're going to come in and they're going to help build out our Madison facility into a full service vet hospital and for primary care and specialty care. And it's going to be an amazing partnership because the St. Hubert campus will be a source of healthcare for the public. This vet partnership is going to provide free and discounted care for shelter animals, and they're going to be paying us rent for the use of our building here. And so what we're going to have is an improved building that has robust healthcare for the Madison community and that better helps our shelter animals. So this is the kind of creative partnership that we're looking at in the years ahead. We're also looking at how can we have more, as I've talked about, more teleservices, more virtual services so that we spread our reach even further. And so here will be St. Hubert's priorities for the coming years. And I'm going to just walk through them bit by bit, and then we'll shift to question and answers. So capacity building. As I said, our Waste Station Alliance has between 94 and 105 partners at any time. And we really want to invest in it, because if we invest in our waste station, we'll be able to transport more animals. We'll be able to do more give backs to the source communities. They will get stronger. They will see less overpopulation, and then they will be able to help animals in their surrounding communities. So the waste station is a really strong backbone program that has a ripple effect, where if we help if we directly move those animals, we're creating space for the shelters to help other animals. We are providing loving homes for all the animals who are transported. We are giving back funding so that they can grow their own programming, and they're going to become that organization that's the hub in their own community. So you can see that just investing in this has this massive impact on tens of thousands of animals and people. And we're going to be looking at how we do transport. Are there ways that we can have mini way stations along the way so that if an animal is moving from, say, Alabama to Morristown, but there's someone in North Carolina who wants that animal, that we can make that match happen along the way? Are there other creative ways for us to do placement as we move animals from crisis to care? So we're calling that Transport 2.0, and we're really going to be expanding on that in the coming years. And the capacity building is the space where we can do that advocacy and preventative work that will allow us to get out of some of the hamster wheels we've been in. Like I said earlier, kitten season and overpopulation come every summer. They've come every summer for as long as I've known anyone to be doing this work. There's no reason we can't solve that problem. There's no reason we can't put solutions and strategies in place to prevent that from happening. The problem is we've been so caught up in doing the care work, we haven't been able to do it. So St. Hubert's is creating a team of people who are going to look at some of those vexing, long-lasting, decades-old problems in animal welfare to create solutions, not just for St. Hubert's and our way station partners, but for any of the organizations that are doing work like ours. And they're going to be developing policies and best practices that not only we can put in place here, but we can disseminate throughout the animal welfare field. And then this is also where all of our field services work will sit, because we have such a strong field services program that helps so many other organizations through disaster support. We'll also be expanding on the community programs. We have a strong team here at St. Hubert's that's out doing the programming. And one of the things we want to do to support them is to create a pet help center where people can call in or log in to get answers to their questions, to resolve problems, to find other agencies or pathways to helping their animals. And so it really will be like a virtual St. Hubert's. And again, initially our priority is to help our communities, but there's no reason once we develop it that it can't be expanded to our Way Station Alliance and any other organization. I talked a bit about lost pet reunification and community engagement. So one of the things I want to focus on is that we'll be training case managers who are really almost like social service workers for animals, who can look at the whole system that the animal is coming from and put solutions in place to make their life better and link them to the services they need. And then finally, we'll be expanding on the care that we give to owned animals through our public training classes and behavior interventions and our public medicine. The financial sustainability, I've touched on a lot of this. So the partnership we're doing with the vet business here in Madison is I think a real, I just think that's going to be a real guiding light to other organizations, a real model for others. But the other thing that we're looking at is revenue generation, and St. Hubert's already shines in this. We have the Buddy's Boutique store that has wonderful products for people who adopt and support us and generates revenue for our programs and for the care of the animals. We have doggy daycare that is a great solution for parents who need a safe place to drop their pets off, but it also generates revenue for our mission. We have humane programs that are imbuing a humane ethic in the next generation of animal lovers, but also it generates revenue for the mission. And then finally, all of our public behavior classes. So again, that's a wonderful model because we're helping animals and we're helping people. But at the same time, we're generating revenue so that we can help more animals. And we're looking to see how can we build out that approach. And then finally, care is always going to be a priority, and care deserves a focus and a priority attention. I think the difference is that we're going to be looking at more foster care, a help center, not unlike the pet help center that supports our foster parents, and then all of the shelter medicine and shelter behavior and the adoptions that we already do. Stewardship and fundraising is something that I think will change just a little bit as we do fundraising, not only for animals and animal programs, but for family programs. So we expect we're going to be bringing more supporters into the fold as we do that. And then people and culture is going to be a huge priority. Our greatest asset are the amazing, amazing people of our organization who have showed up every day during the pandemic, often at risk for themselves, often while they had incredible stressors at home, but they were the lifeblood of the organization and they were there for the animals. And all of the animals who are here, they look to the staff. They look to the staff as their caregivers and their champions. And our staff showed up for them, and they showed up for you, and they showed up for the community. And so we want to make sure that we're a good place to work, where they have career paths if they want them, opportunities to grow, where this is a meaningful work environment, and where it's a workplace where they want to be. Because without them, there is no St. Hubert's. And so that's just a glimpse ahead. We'll have lots of opportunities to tell you more as we develop some of these things out, but I want to give you a glimpse today. And now I think that Diane is going to walk us through some of the questions that might have come in the chat.
That's right, Lisa. I would like to encourage everyone to please put your questions in the Q&A portion on the bottom of your screen so that if you have questions for Lisa, we can address them. Let's start with this question. Lisa, what are you most looking forward to in 2022?
Well, I'm really looking forward to the community around St. Hubert's is so supportive. I'll never forget just the first weeks that I was here, and that I would go out with my St. Hubert shirt, and I felt like a celebrity. Like I felt like this was a community that so supports this organization. And so I'm looking forward to doing more to interact with the community through more classes, more human ed sessions, more programming, having people come to our facilities. I'm also looking forward to the growth of our way station. I mean, I'm not sure I'm not sure we've told the story of how much other organizations like ours in less fortunate communities rely on St. Hubert's through this way station. And I'm excited to grow that work. I'm excited to invest more in it. I'm excited to help more animals and more people. It's a wonderful thing when a plane lands at Morristown Airport with 100 animals who are looking for the promise of a new life here. And so I can't wait to see more of that happening. And the other thing is that this staff is just so creative and so energized, and they're coming up with so many ideas that I never would have thought of. And so I'm looking forward to listening to what those ideas are and then finding a way to make them happen.
Great. How are you and your team managing the effects of COVID on staff shortages and supply chain issues?
Yeah, so I will say that the way that supply chain issues affect us is mostly around the care of our facility. And we have 3 facilities, one here in Madison, which is where I'm sitting, but we also have one in North Branch and Noah's Ark. And so it's harder to get supplies to do what we need to do there. But in terms of the regular care of the animals and the work of our mission, we haven't been so affected by that. I expect we might be as we get to building out the vet hospital here at our headquarters. So that's something we're keeping an eye on. But up until now, it hasn't, knock on wood, it hasn't been a huge issue. The staff has been really affected by this. I mean, we have people that are in the communities every day. We have lots of people who've had COVID, who who are single parents who are trying to manage kids being virtual learners. And it's been a tough year. And so part of what we're trying to do is set up forums where they can develop solutions, because I think the most empowering thing for staff members is when they can see a problem and give input that's listened to and solve that problem. So things haven't always been that way, and we're trying to create these feedback loops so that people have a voice in how they answer questions of the public, how they help more animals, and come up with innovations. I mean, I don't think innovation is a top-down thing. I think it's a bottom-up thing. And so part of what I'm trying to do as the leader is make sure we have mechanisms for people to be listened to and to come up with the path forward, because they're closest to the work and they have better ideas than I do.
Great. We have a question about the vet clinic. It says the new partnership that you mentioned with the vet clinic leasing space at St. Hubert's, will they only be located in one St. Hubert's location, or will they expand to all St. Hubert's locations? And when will that clinic open to the public?
Great question. So it will only be at Madison. We have plenty of parking here, and we have plenty of space. We'll be using some of the space on the first floor and some of the space on the second floor. If you're in the parking lot, it'll be on the left-hand side of the building in a couple of our wings, and then the space above the wings. And we don't have any plans to expand it any further. Our other facilities are relatively small, and really couldn't support something of that scale. And so it will just be in Madison. And I wish I could tell you when it's going to open. We're hoping to start construction this summer, but that's all going to rely on the supply chain issues. And what we're being told by contractors is that it's a little bit uncertain. But again, we're just at the stage right now where we're signing all of the partnership agreements, and we hope to get started this summer. But I'm a little nervous about giving an open date just because I don't know what to expect with the supply chain.
Yeah. Now, Sharon asks, she says, please tell us more about volunteering and where needs are greatest at St. Hubert's, Madison at St. Hubert's.
Well, I think that I'm not sure that there's one place that they're greater than anywhere else. I know that we always need people to help with the care of the animals, with laundry. And what I would encourage is part of what we tried to do through our volunteer program is create almost like a matchmaking where volunteers can talk about when they can help, how they can help, what they're interested in, and actually create volunteer paths for individuals. So I would encourage you to contact our volunteer team, and they can give you really concierge attention based on what your timing is, what time of day, what days of the week, and how you like to give. I mean, we're trying to transition from a one-size-all volunteer program to more of a concierge approach.
Someone asks, are you currently hosting adoption events outside the shelter?
At this point, we are not, but I think that is something that we are hoping to get to. We've had to kind of hunker down a little bit just because our staffing levels aren't what we want them to be, because people have been struggling with so many things. We've had a little bit more turnover because in which tracks with overall society. And so the team has kind of been pitching in to help each other, and we've scaled back some of the extra things that we were doing, but we have every plan to start doing that again as soon as this pandemic loosens its grip a little more on us.
Great. We're going to have time for probably one more question, but before we get to it, I'd like to encourage everyone to take a 3-question survey at the end of this webinar. to let us know what topics and what updates you'd like to hear from us this year in future conversations. So any other questions that we didn't get to, we will definitely answer them and share them at a later date. But Lisa, our last question comes about our transport program. Someone says, are you looking for additional transport partners?
Yes. Very simple. Yes. And if you could put your name in the chat, then we can, or send it to the host. We will make sure that someone on our team contacts you. I will also share my email, which is LaFontaine at sthuberts.org. So if you want to just reach out to me directly, you can do that too.
Great. Well, before we end, I'm just reading a comment from someone who's been a volunteer, an important volunteer with us at St. Hubert's. She says, Lisa, I love your feelings expressed. As a volunteer for decades, I have tears in my eyes because all these volunteers are so dedicated and hardworking. They inspire me every day. And I love them all so much. I've learned so much from them as I share their love and knowledge of animals. So I thought that was a lovely way to end from a longtime volunteer, that we have such a great staff here and such great volunteers working together to help animals and communities.
Yes, I mean, we would be nowhere without you, and you've put tears in my eyes too, because something I may not have mentioned is that I started in this work as a volunteer, and I keep my my current name tag and my volunteer name tag side by side so that I always remember what it was like to be a volunteer. And so I have a deep love and appreciation for all of you and what you do, because we could not do this work without you. And so we are just as committed to you as you are to us, and we are just as grateful, if not more grateful to you than you are to us. So thank you very much. And please, as Diane said, we have these 3 questions. We love doing these community conversations. We want to talk to you more, and we want to talk about the things you care about. We are an open book, and we'll answer any of your questions and tell you more about anything that St. Hubert's is doing. So make sure to fill that out. And until next time, have a wonderful Friday, stay safe in the weather, and have a wonderful weekend. Take care.